Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogram with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. Today is Monday. I thought I heard Matt in the back laughing. Today's Monday, January 9th. We're glad you're here. This is a regular show that we do on Mondays and Fridays live. We are back to our regular schedule. Hello to some of the regulars in the chat. Oh, I know what it is. I hear an echo. Here, let me just bring Matt on. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Hi. I'm
Hi.
sorry. No, you know what it is? I was putting the show on YouTube like on a separate tab, and I hadn't muted it yet. That's what you were hearing. You were hearing some echo back.
Okay.
I'm
I thought you were
I'm
laughing.
not the best with tech.
Robert Lowry, hello. Sorry, says someone's got a case of the Mondays. Yeah, little rough start. No worries. So, if it's your first time here, we're glad you're joining us. We usually just talk through the news or whatever topics are on our mind. They don't have to be in the 24-hour news cycle. And we like to hang out with people and try and find some joy in life during what are hard times, trying times for many, or just crazy times in general. So welcome. We do have a Patreon and a locals and a subscribe star if you want to support Deprogrammed. My guest today, my co-host today, is Matt Antar, returning champion. There was someone in the chat who asked who you are. So for anyone who hasn't seen the interview with you, or if they're not familiar with you, just tell people a little bit about your channel and what it is that you do.
So I'm honestly, who am I? I'm just a guy in New York who like had a big problem with the COVID stuff that was going on. I was an actor, a performer. I still get to sing every now and then in conservative spaces, so that's a nice thing. But I'm mostly a former actor performer, and I didn't like the COVID stuff, and that doesn't really fly in my industry or the town that I live in. So I've become sort of a Twitter, YouTube something.
You just say, you just speak your mind. That's why I say, I'm just a lady. They're like,
Yeah.
who are you? A lady?
Like, who am I? Like, I don't know. I'm some dude who had some opinions. Like,
Well, you have an interview coming out on your channel soon with another actor who's a friend of Deprogram. Do you want to tell us about that one and when it's coming out, or are you
yeah.
not ready?
No, I'm totally right. This will be great because I haven't announced it yet on my stuff. So the really early bird people in the know will be people who watch Keri's channel. Yeah, no, I just had a great interview with Clifton Duncan on my for my YouTube channel. It's not up yet. I am planning to put it out later this week. Clifton is awesome and was actually, I mean, God bless him, because he was a lot farther along on an acting career. Like he was doing it at the highest levels. I was like climbing the ladder to eventually do it at the highest levels, but he was up there. He was doing it. And he, like me, had some what I've started to call on my channel illegal opinions. So the two of us had illegal opinions, and so I was so happy he agreed to do the show, and it's a really great interview. If you check out, I don't know if there's Pirate has the links for everything. So if you subscribe to my channel, if I can plug myself,
Yes,
if you subscribe to my channel, which Pirate has up on there on the chat, that interview will be out this week.
Awesome. So everyone go and subscribe to Matt Antar if you haven't already. It helps growing channels just to have people sign on and say, yeah, I support this channel. Subscribing, if you're new to YouTube, subscribing on YouTube doesn't mean that you have to financially contribute. It just means you are following the channel. And then if you want to financially contribute, you can do that through a YouTube membership or other ways. But go and hit subscribe on Matt Antar, and I highly recommend that interview when it comes out. Okay. Pirate, thank you. Thanks for putting that up on the screen. Okay. I've got a couple things I want to talk about today. I know you've got a couple things on your mind, Matt. First of all, I didn't show you this beforehand because I just wanted to get your opinion. You may have seen it though. I posted it. So you might have already seen it.
Maybe.
Because it just made me laugh. Mystery Chris took this photo. So Mystery Chris is my co-host on Wednesday nights. And this is an actual bumper sticker he saw in Austin.
I did see that when you posted it. I totally saw that when you posted it.
It just cracks me up. It says in all caps, if you're just listening and not watching, it's a bumper sticker. It says the fat tax is, and then below it, it says transphobic, racist, classist, ableist, and anti-feminist. All those things.
I would, what is the fat tax? Like, I'm so confused.
Amy, Two Sisters in Some Yard says, OMG, I thought it was a real bumper sticker. I thought it was a joke. No, this is a real bumper sticker seen out in the wild. The fat tax, Matt, we're going to learn about the fat tax.
Oh my God. I can't wait.
I had a joke. Really, I just wanted to highlight this on the show so somebody would laugh at my dad joke. I said, it's the IRS who collects the fat tax. Nah?
That's good. Love it. Love it.
Okay. If you look up the fat tax, you will find lots of articles like this one. Now, before we read this, I'll just say if you're new to understanding social justice ideology, I'll tell you what the fat tax really means. It's just this ideology is basically a mutated form of Marxism. And whereas Marxism was sort of saying the best way to look at the world is as this competition between class groups for wealth, and we need to redistribute wealth in order to make everyone equal. Okay, so this mutated form of Marxism says, no, it's a competition between identity groups for power, and we have to redistribute power among different identity groups. Therefore, we have to judge and treat people differently based on what race and sex and sexuality they are. And so a natural outcome of that kind of belief system is that there are continually more of these so-called oppressed groups that are now forming and are putting themselves under the umbrella of social justice. And so one of them is size. And so now people say, okay, fat people are also one of the oppressed groups, and anybody who's not fat is the oppressor. And
Right.
so and this is why, if people are like, why are they linking it to transphobia and racism and sexism and stuff? It's because they want it to be cannibalized as part of that, under the umbrella of social justice, so they can get all the people who care about those other social justice issues to also come in and battle on their behalf, make things more equal for fat people by taking power away from not fat people. It's all convoluted.
So how are oppressors like us who oppress fat people, how are we taxing them?
Okay, so basically what they're saying is because they're fat, they have to pay a tax. Now, not all fat people are saying this. Fat people who are not woke, they don't say this nonsense.
Sure.
But fat people who are woke say, we have to pay extra money in terms of when we buy clothes, because it requires more fabric, more yardage of fabric. We have to pay a little bit more money for our clothing that you don't have to pay because you're using less material. And we have to pay more if sometimes we have to get 2 airplane seats because we can't fit into one. And that's a tax. We shouldn't have to pay the price of 2. They should just give us 2 for the price of 1. Yeah.
So the grievance is that they don't want to pay more to get more. Cause like, I mean, just like,
Yes.
I have no, like, look, I have no issues with anybody and their size or what. I don't think being fat is healthy, but I don't have an issue obviously with anybody's size. But if they're saying, well, I shouldn't have to pay more for more fabric, or I shouldn't have to pay more because there's an additional seat on the plane I have to buy, that's kind of like, well, why shouldn't you have to pay more for more stuff? Just from a capitalistic standpoint. But then, of course, this is sort of Marxism in disguise. So of course, it's like, of course they don't want to pay more for more goods or more services, because that's just way too capitalist.
Yes, they do not. You're exactly right. It's too capitalist. And it doesn't matter if it's fair. They don't believe in equality in like if you're using more, pay more. Marxists, these kind of social justice Marxists, they believe in equity, not equality. Equity means you rig everything so that the so-called supposed lowest or most oppressed, I guess they consider themselves oppressed because having to spend a little bit more money, then you're the most oppressed. Well, then we need to rig everything so that you're not paying more for more, that other people pay that
Right.
your share for that more. Here's an article from Insider. The fat tax is real. Here are 5 examples that prove it's more expensive to be plus sized. And then you see an image of someone pricing clothing at a store, and underneath it, it says, the fat tax exists from clothing to furniture to transportation. Okay, wait. And then some bullet points. The fat tax is a difference in price between items, clothing, bikes, furniture, etc., made for those in the plus size community and those who are not. They also, look how they do this. They do this with gay people too. I'm sure you've seen this. They always try and make like they use this word community.
Community, yeah.
Yeah, to try and make it like, this is a group and everyone in this group should think the same way. All so-called plus size people, you're all in this community and you're all oppressed and you should all have the same opinion on this. It says the same t-shirt at Old Navy could cost $16.99 for straight sizes, extra small to double XL, and $19.99 for plus sizes. So $3 more because you're using more.
I mean, look, like if it's the same price from extra small to double XL, that's a pretty wide range to pay the the lower price. I mean, if it only goes up once you get to triple XL, I mean, that's a lot of like double XL is not thin. So, I mean, that to me is like, that's actually a lot of leeway for a lot of different sizes to pay the small price. We're really only talking about the most extreme on the obesity scale. And look, like I said, there are certain people who have health conditions where they cannot lose weight. And I understand that, because that's always the argument that these people who scream fat phobia, they're like, some people have health conditions. That's true. There are people who have certain thyroid issues and certain things that they cannot lose weight. And I feel bad for those people. Generally speaking, if you do not have that issue, losing weight is an option. It's going to be difficult, probably. You're going to have to change some of your habits, blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't this be an excellent incentive for you to get a little healthier, for you to lose a little weight, just down to double XL? We're not asking for a miracle here. Just down to double XL. Like, wouldn't this be a great incentive for you to just like be like, man, it is expensive to be this size. Maybe I'm gonna start to eat a little bit healthier. Maybe I'm gonna start to work out a little bit, or any of the multitude of things that you can do to just lose a little weight, just down to double XL.
Just down to double X, yeah.
God, if I wasn't canceled before, I'm gonna be canceled now.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's not like there's not a great range between extra small and double XL where you pay the standard price. The other reason I think they charge more for the plus sizes for the clothing sometimes is because there aren't that many people in those sizes, and so to make them is extra labor and stuff to come up with that design for that large of a size and to stock it and carry it. And
Right.
It's not just that they're using more fabric, and but don't ask these social justice Marxists to understand anything about economics or why it might be necessary to charge a little more for those that fall outside the average. Dom, thank you, Dom, for highlighting some of the Orwellian language here. In the average weight community, that's like a cis. That's like one of these, like, they're trying to create this group that we're all in the average weight community if we're not over a double XL. Okay, well,
right.
privilege.
Well, and actually, I've outside of this, when you're, I know that I think that like for men's shoe sizes, I don't think they carry above size 13 standard, or maybe it's 14. I don't remember. There is a certain size above which they don't carry
Yes.
standard. And it's going to cost you more if you have size
Yes.
15, size 16 feet, if you're a basketball player, if you're 7 feet tall,
Yes.
whatever. And that is like really something you can't control, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about like, with weight, generally speaking, you have a certain amount of control over it unless you have a health condition. But like your height and your shoe size and stuff like that, you really have no control over that. But of course, but those do cost more because hardly any men have size 15, 16 feet. I think it's the same thing with women. There's like a certain amount,
Yes.
there's a certain size above which it doesn't go. And it's like, and I've talked to people who have like, who need size 15 shoes, and they kind of laugh about it. They're like, oh yeah, it's my cross to bear. I'm always paying more for shoes, but they're not like, oh, it's tall phobia, it's big feet phobia or whatever. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like,
It's look, Cheeky Mare is explaining what I was trying to explain before about, and what you're saying about shoe sizes, about why there's an added cost if it's one of those outlier sizes where there are not that many people who need that size. She says, I used to be in the screen printing business. You have to have different silk screens for larger sizes to have the same look. So they're paying money. They have to come up with supplies and patterns and silk screens for those larger sizes that are not average, that don't get stocked. And so there is an added cost to that. So, and it's not discriminatory. It's not like you're oppressed because you're
right,
having to pay for that extra. It's the large feet is a great. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's not something where you're able to control it, like you said, where you can like work out and get your shoe size smaller. And
right,
it's the same thing. I used to sell handmade cowboy boots. If, like you said, there is a size at which we would not stock. And if you get something over that, it's going to cost a little bit more, because
right,
they're making it for you specifically who does not fall within the average.
right,
This is true for anything. It's not just weight or size, but the social justice Marxists, they want to look at any kind of outlier and say, this is oppression because I fall within, I'm an outlier in this area, therefore I'm oppressed. Everybody's an outlier in some area.
right.
Like,
Well, they always talk about. You read your super chat first, and then we'll talk.
oh, thank you, Alex Lindstrom. Thank you, sir. 499. He says, body positivity helped me remove my self-worth from my overweight size. But once I started seeing this woke bitterness, I stopped there. Hey, dude, I'm so glad you sent this in, because like a lot of social justice, they take things that start off good. There's like a nugget of truth there. Like, let's just look at the race part of social justice. They're taking something that where there is a nugget of truth. Yes, our country was involved with and has experienced extreme racism, like almost every country. And we have a history of racism, like almost every country. And they take something like that, and then they take the good intent of people, and then they corrupt it, and they take it to this Marxist place. And the same thing happened with body positivity. I truly believe it started off, it wasn't a part of social justice at the beginning. It was about removing stigma, and like you said, removing shame about body size, and helping remove your sense of self-worth or identity from your size. And they took that goodness and they corrupted it. When it got pulled into social justice, then it became about, and now it's an oppressed group, and now we're going to treat people differently if they're not in the oppressed group. And I will recommend, Alex and anybody else who's interested, there's a great documentary. You can find it online. It's called The Dark Side of the Fat Positivity Movement. And in this documentary, they talk about this, how it changed over time. They interview people who were in these body positivity groups on Facebook that started out with good intent, and over time, after they became infiltrated by and corrupted by social justice, they got to a place where it was mob rule, and they were throwing people out of these groups. Like in a photo that they had lost a few pounds, they would throw them out of the group. Like, you lost some weight, you're out.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, it's so. What I was going to say is like, like you said, it starts with good intent. I also think it starts with at least maybe not the people who are kind of ramping stuff up, but the people they kind of bring into their circle. I think a lot of them have good intentions. I also think a lot of them have a lot of guilt. Like when you talk about the race stuff, and you're absolutely right. We have a terrible history in this country with that. And maybe somebody who is a little more white skinned or lighter skinned may, even if they didn't do anything, they just may feel like somewhat guilty for whatever reason. And that's preyed upon. And then with this, with the fat positivity movement, I mean, not that I don't know if we've ever had like an institutional discrimination against larger people, but surely, I mean, they do probably have it a little bit more difficult in life, and
Yes.
they get made fun of, and they,
Yes.
and for the record, I don't think anybody should be made fun of for their size. It's not right to make fun of anybody. It's not right to be cruel, to tease people, anything like that, to make somebody feel bad about something. But then they take it to, there's nothing wrong with being fat. It's like, okay, well, it's objectively not healthy. I mean, it's not good for you. The overweight and obesity is not healthy. Any doctor will tell, any doctor like up to about 3 years ago would have told you that. Now you got doctors afraid to tell patients to lose weight because they're afraid of being fat phobic.
It's worse than that, Matt. Did I ever tell you about my friend who worked at Harvard Medical School?
No.
I've talked about this on the show before. She had a background in activism and comedy. So not medicine, activism.
Okay.
I knew her from, I think it was the ACLU. She ended up getting an activist job working at Harvard Medical, teaching medical students all this social justice stuff. Yes, teaching them that gender's not real, biological sex isn't real, and that there's nothing unhealthy about being obese. Medical students. And they would fly her around to other hospitals around the country and to do conventions and workshops with other med students, teaching them the same things about how it's oppressive and fat phobic for doctors to focus on losing weight if the patient is obese, and not to call attention to the weight, to like address other areas instead. It's complete brainwashing of med students.
I've seen news articles where it's like doctors should ask a patient before they just like assume the patient wants to be weighed. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, like informed consent anywhere. If the patient doesn't want to be weighed, you can't make them. But to tell a doctor not to weigh a patient standard when the patient first walks into their office, step on the scale for me for a second. To tell doctors like, oh, well, you should ask first. It shouldn't be standard. It's like, no, of course it should be standard. The doctor needs to know your weight. They need to know your height, your weight. Yeah. If you can, check your eyes. Can you see? Can you hear? This is like all standard stuff that they check.
Not anyone. One of the things that this former friend celebrated online was a success that she had in getting a hospital to remove the male and female designation from your hospital bracelet, which again, kind of important. And the list of things that should be on your bracelet when you're a patient in a hospital, like maybe your blood type, maybe if you're male or female, in case, but no. And that was like viewed as a success. We got rid of this.
If you're especially in the medical field, like whether you're male or female, kind of well, first of all, I mean, 99% of patients you can tell, but for someone a little more androgynous, and then to not have a male or female on their brain, I mean, it informs like what parts you have. Like we have different parts. Sorry, we do, but and doctors need to know what parts you have.
There was that story of, it's been a while since I covered this. It was a story of a trans man, so a biological woman who went into the hospital. If somebody in the chat remembers this story, see if you can find the news link. It was this a biological woman, trans man, went into the hospital. You could not tell, passed as a man, had abdominal pains, and because he or she didn't disclose the fact that she was a biological woman, they didn't check for to see if she was pregnant, and she was, and
Yeah.
it was, and so they were trying to treat all these other things, and ended up the baby died. And I just remember
See,
that
like
story
that's like
being
a
like,
real
this is sort of,
consequence.
yeah, that's a real consequence. And it's sort of like, that's just a basic, why wouldn't you have that on there? I just want to say hi. I said the chat's scrolling by. Nick Weiser's in the chat. Hello, Mr. 32 Flavors. If you guys haven't seen the interview I did with Nick, check it out. It's the Slayer approach to life. Nick turned me on to some Christian heavy metal, which has been awesome, or Christian metal. And actually, you and Matt, you and Nick, I think would get along great. You guys should talk sometime, probably.
Hey, Nick.
But yeah, thanks for hanging out. Yes, that
I was
example I gave is real. If somebody wants to find it, I think Two Sisters and Some Yarn found it. Pregnant transgender man births stillborn baby, hospital missed labor signs. That's in USA Today.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, actually, just this morning, I was in I'm in like a few like private Twitter chats or whatever, and with like-minded based whatever. But someone was asking, like, because they had a family member who the family member said that you still can't go to their house without a mask on because they're afraid for their 2-year-old child. And my friend was like, does anybody have like any statistics about like how this is crazy? Your 2-year-old child is going to be fine from COVID. And so I went on the CDC to try and get a link to literally how many children under the age of 18 have died this entire time from COVID. And, those numbers may or may not even be inflated, but they're very low to begin with. And I'm looking through, and because it's like these whole data sets and whatever, and you have to kind of like filter through stuff. But I found what I was looking for, and then it was like, okay, children like 0 to 17 who died of COVID, and then it said all sexes, and I saw that, and I went, see. It's like subliminal like that. Like, what do you mean all sexes? All implies 3 or more.
Yeah.
Both is 2. All implies 3 or more. So when you say all sexes, what do you mean by that? Why didn't you say both sexes? Well, of course the CDC is not going to say both sexes anymore, because not that I was at all surprised to see that, but I was just like, that's not even like in your face woke. That's like just like subliminally, like you could miss it if you weren't thinking.
Yes.
But it's intentional.
It's
intentional, all sexes.
Yeah, and it's a slight manipulation of language and the way, and by manipulating language, they manipulate the way you think. Wikipedia snippet said this in the chat: every cult redefines words. And yes, they're very good at redefining words and coming up with new words and doing those little subliminal language things like that, like all sexes, just to slowly get the way that we think to change the way that we think, which is the way that you control people. Yeah. Okay, well, let's get back to the fat tax just briefly, and then we'll move on, I promise. But for anybody who wants to know what they say it is, so it's charging more for plus sizes, and then it says airlines like Alaska Airlines require passengers to pay for an extra seat if they cannot comfortably fit within one seat with the armrest in the down position. Again, if you require 2 seats, I'm sorry, you have to pay for 2 seats. Who do you expect to pay for that other seat?
I would venture a guess that anyone up to a double XL size can probably fit in a single seat. They probably make the seats wide enough to accommodate a range. I mean, I'm being a little cheeky with the double XL thing, but but really, like, it's probably the seat can probably accommodate anybody who is not anybody, but a certain amount of people who would probably be clinically overweight or obese up to a certain point.
Look, Amy says, I'm bigger than double XL and I could definitely fit in an airline seat. So anecdotal evidence for the win. There we go. Our chat has determined.
Yes. But I mean,
Yeah,
the airline's not gonna make you pay for two seats and then say, well, our seats can only accommodate extra small, and if you're bigger than that, because then there would be an uproar because most people aren't extra small. They're going to accommodate 95% of people at least.
yeah. Did
You
you
know?
see that picture that Sydney Watson posted a few months ago? It went viral where she was on an airline. She was in the middle seat between two people who did not comfortably fit into their seats, and both were kind of had pushed over into her area. So she was like sitting like this, and you know, that's why the airline requires it. Some airlines require it, and I think they should, because that person who's paid for that middle seat to sit next to you, it's like they shouldn't have to. What do you call that? If you call it a fat tax, if you're required to buy two seats, if you take up two seats, what's it called for the person who has to sit next to you when you're halfway in their seat? What kind of tax is that?
Yeah.
Is that the
Oh, look,
average weight tax?
Two sisters and some yarn said, because I can relate to this, said, I'm 6 feet tall. When do I get leg room? Listen, I can relate to this. I'm 6'1". Keri's met me in person. She knows I'm tall. I'm 6'1". And look, here's a really great analogy. I'm 6'1". I do not comfortably fit in an economy seat. My legs are squished. So then I have to sit there and make that choice and be like, okay, I can okay, when I was 22, 23, I went on a trip to Israel. I went on birthright because I'm Jewish-ish in my family. So I went on birthright to Israel, which is a free trip if you don't know that
Oh,
the
wow.
Israeli government and
I
certain
didn't know
Jewish
that.
donors and whatever. Yeah. If you're I don't know if it extends beyond America, but if you for sure in America, if you have Jewish lineage, a desire to visit Israel, it's pretty easy to go, and you have to be under a certain age. It's you can get a free trip to Israel based on certain donors and some and I think the Israeli government subsidizes it and all of that. So I did take this trip, right? So but it was a free trip. So we were in basic economy class seats, right? For a
Mhm.
10-12 hour flight, right? Now I couldn't do anything about it because the tickets were bought for me. It was free, whatever. Fast forward to now. If I was going to go to Israel again for 10 hours going, 12 hours coming back, I would have to make the choice. If I pay cheap and sit in economy, I'm not going to be able to sleep. My legs are going to be squished. Or I can get a business class ticket and I can stretch out and be comfortable and put my feet up. But that business class ticket is going to cost me some more money. And that's like, I mean, it's not a direct analogy
No,
because
but it
at least
is.
I have the choice. But
It's the height tax. There you go. And
right. It's the height tax.
you sound like a height supremacist, frankly.
Uh,
Ex
so, I'm oppressed because of my height, and I should just get a business class seat for the price of economy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, man. Hello to the dangerous Wreck guys. I saw you in the chat. I know it went by pretty fast. There you are. Dangerous Threat. Hello, lovelies. It's
Hello,
Dan.
boys, or just Dan, whoever's
Dan, good
on.
to see you. Hype Power says Robert Lowry. So stupid. Okay, I have something else to show you. Now this,
Okay.
I think this is excellent. I think everyone needs to watch this, and you may have already seen it. It's a little old, I think, but I just saw it for the first time. Um, I especially think I especially think maybe conservatives who aren't that familiar with uh, drag queens and that community, to use one of the social justice words, should watch it, because sometimes I've found, well, some of the conservatives I know anyway, they seem to sometimes fall into the trap that the left is set, where they think that the leftists, it's almost like they buy into the lie that the leftists do speak for all gay people and all lesbian people and all drag queens and transgender people and all black people, and they don't. And they don't. And
Yeah,
if you don't know people who are in these groups that the left claims to speak for, who are saying, no, they don't speak for me, you should be aware of folks who are like, no, they don't speak for me. So this is, without further ado, this is a clip of drag queen Keri Demure.
I love her.
Have you seen this?
I don't know if I've seen this clip, but I love Kitty. She's awesome.
This is amazing, and this is a drag queen who is basically saying, "Keep your kids out of drag shows. What the F is wrong with you?" Okay.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go.
Has a drag queen ever done to make you have so much respect for them and admire them so much, other than put on makeup and jump on the floor and writhe around and do sexual things on stage? I have absolutely no idea why you would want that to influence your child. Would you want a stripper or a porn star to influence your child? It makes no sense at all. A drag queen performs in a nightclub for adults. There is a lot of filth that goes on, a lot of sexual
Yes.
stuff that goes on. And backstage, there's a lot of nudity, sex, and drugs. Okay? So I don't think that this is an avenue you would want your child to explore. They could explore dressing up at home like we all did, like all gay boys did. We all dressed at home and we had a great time. We had a great time with our girlfriends, putting on makeup, trying on clothes, things like that. But to actually get them involved in drag is extremely, extremely irresponsible on your part. And I understand you might want to look like you're with it, that you're cool, that you're woke, that you're not a Nazi, that you're not a homophobe, whatever it may be. But you can raise your child to be just a normal, regular, everyday child without including them in gay, sexual things. And honestly, you're not doing the gay community any favors. In fact, you're hurting us, okay? We have already had a reputation of being pedophiles and being perverts and deviants. We don't need you to bring your children around. So you keep your kids at home or take them to Disneyland or take them to Chuck E. Cheese. But if you need your child to be entertained by a big human in a costume or in makeup, take them to the circus or something. When they turn 18, then why don't you take them to the clubs on their 18th birthday? Because it's an adult thing, okay? So don't ruin your child's life and don't ruin us, because that's what you're doing.
Isn't that awesome?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, Kitty is really cool. And I've seen that video before. And I also, I have a very close friend of mine who's a drag queen who completely is like, I would be so uncomfortable performing for children. Like that I would just be like, I would kind of like, I would want to take the parent aside and be like, do you know where you are? Like, do you, this is maybe not for your children. Like, and so, and with what you were saying, like talking about how like, oh, they think everybody thinks a certain way. So, and, you know, even narrowing it down from gay people, like not all drag queens think that it's appropriate for children. There are drag queens like my friend, like Kitty, who are like, don't bring your kids. Don't bring your kids. This is not for children. You know
Like,
what I mean?
what are you doing? Yeah. They don't speak for drag queens. You know, that's the thing. They do not, but they try to. And if people aren't familiar with drag queens, maybe they have never been to a drag show, or they're just, you know, that's just outside of what their world has been. You might be tempted to fall into that trap that they're setting, where you think, well, it's all drag queens who do this and believe this. No, don't let them speak for everyone. Familiarize yourself with people who are in the groups they claim to speak for, who are like, hello, I'm here. They don't speak for me.
Well, this is also what I mean, what you were talking about before about there's like always like a nugget of truth in something. I don't even know if this is like a nugget of truth or not, but so the argument that I always hear for bringing kids around drag queens, for having drag queens read to kids, blah, 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 is that it, you know, well, we want to teach kids acceptance of the gay community. And the nugget that's in there is, of course, you want to teach kids to be accepting of gay people. You don't want to teach your kids to hate gay people. You don't want to, you want to teach your kids to respect everybody, right? But that's where the truth stops. Because first of all, it's I hate saying stuff like this, but like, as a gay man, I always hate being like, but but as a gay man, I'm quite insulted that you think the way to teach acceptance of gay people is to bring drag queens around them, because drag queen doesn't equal gay, and gay doesn't equal drag queen. Drag is, like Kitty was saying, it is a type of performance art that is adult in nature and happens in nightclubs. That's what it is. It's not gay. I mean, yes, traditionally it's done by gay men, but there's nothing stopping a straight person from performing in drag. There's nothing. I mean, and I have heard, rare case, but I've heard of straight men who like to do drag, and like. And you know, if they're doing it for adults and whatever, that's fine. So it's like, I get very insulted as a gay man. I get very insulted to hear, you know, well, we need to teach acceptance of the gay community. I'm like, well, then why don't, if you want to teach acceptance of the gay community, why don't you teach kids some families have two daddies and some families have two mommies, and we respect all kinds of families? Why don't you do that? Isn't that teaching acceptance of the gay community? Why do you need to bring them around?
It would be like having burlesque dancer story hour and saying, because we want to teach people about straight people. Because most of the people I know who do burlesque are straight.
Right.
But like you said,
Or women.
Yeah, or women, and not every straight woman does burlesque. So it's so stupid.
Right.
It's like, well, we're having burlesque story hour. Why? So that people learn about straight women. What? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's a kind of performance.
Right. Or if you wanted to go like woke with it, you could say like, oh, burlesque story hour because we want to teach kids to respect women. It's like,
Yeah,
well, then teach kids to be respectful to women.
To women, right? Like, what does that have to do with?
What does that have to do with burlesque?
Exactly. I just wanted to highlight this. I don't know if he's still here, but Daniel from Dangerous Rhetoric says they have an interview on their channel with Keri Demure. If you guys want to go check that out. Thank you. Yeah, the whole story hour thing used to crack me up anyway when I first started thinking about it, because they were trying to say this is about teaching diversity. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody made a point that there's a ton of different careers out there, and you don't see them having, you know, fireman story hour. Go and sit down with the fireman, right? Like, they don't have they're not like, you know, dump truck driver story hour. Why not? Where's the dump truck driver story hour? Like, oh, what about cowboy story hour? Like, what are all the different why is it drag queens? Why specifically drag queens? There's no other profession or type of art that you're trying to highlight there. There's never been a you know, comedian story hour, or I don't know. It's just the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and some comedians shouldn't do story hour for kids because their comedy is vulgar, and you know, and you know, and again, that's fine for adults. I love vulgar comedy. I think it's great, but like, not for children, you know?
Yeah. Dion nails it. Drag queens is to gay as strippers are to straight people. Yeah, exactly. Stripper story hour. Why? To teach about women. No.
No. You know, like I said, I also, you know, I don't know. I don't want drag to represent gay people. And I feel like there's this push to be like, well, gay is about drag. And I'm like, I mean, I don't want gay to be about anything. I want it to be, you know, some people are like this and respect them. That's all I want it to be. But like, you know, I don't want it to be about drag. Like, yeah, you were saying cops, firemen, whatever, you know, I want to see gay cops, and I want to see gay firemen, and I want to see gay people doing anything that anybody else does. You know, what would bother me is like gay people being excluded from a profession. That would be discrimination. But so, you know, and what I don't want to see is like, oh, if you're gay, maybe you'll like grow up to be a drag queen. Oh, why? Because I'm gay. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, how insulting.
I just want to say,
yeah, that's what you do. It's like, it's not what I do. That's not. And like, again, if you want to be a drag queen and perform for adults and whatever, that's fine. That's your journey. But like, I want gay people to be anything, you know?
Matt, if you want to see gay cops and firemen, it's called The Village People. Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Any chance for a Village People joke?
Yeah.
Um,
It's so funny because I grew up in New York, so I'm a diehard Yankee fan, and tall girl story hour. I love
Yeah.
that. And I think it's like the fifth or the sixth inning, like between innings, the grounds crew at Yankee Stadium always does they're like cleaning the field, and then they're always doing YMCA. And I'm always laughing because I'm like this like masculine sport is like does YMCA at every. It's like it's funny. Anyway, that's my little anecdote. That's my little New York story.
I'm going to show you something now. I've been hesitant. I wasn't sure if I should show this or not, but why not? We're having a laugh at crazy stuff. So hold on one second, Matt. Let me grab this.
Sure.
Pirate says he wants Pirate Story Hour.
Same. I want Pirate Story Hour too. Oh.
Okay. Since we're talking about books and children's books, I visit a lot of thrift stores and junk stores, and sometimes I've heard people on the right, not often, but sometimes I've heard people try and downplay. I think this is a sad outcome of social justice ideology. Is one of the results of it is that sometimes you get people who, because people get so tired of the frankly false racism claims that we see all around us today in society, that they start to try and whitewash history a little bit or pretend like things weren't that bad. And they were. And there's a bunch of racist stuff that's in some of these junk stores. And in a way, it cracks me up because it's so outside of the norm. And I think stuff like this is, by the way, woke people, I think, would try and banish stuff like this. But I think that these things are important for people to see and remember for several reasons. One, to point out that to the woke people who talk about all the microaggressions and the hidden racism and the coded racism out there, that you're making a mockery of very real racism that has existed throughout history and still exists today, but you're making a mockery of it. And number two, to remind anyone who might be tempted to whitewash history that, like, no, things were pretty terrible. This is a book I found in a store called Watermelon Pete. I know, right? I already I know. I sent a picture to Mystery Chris, and he was like, "Why didn't they call it Watermelon Willie?" He's like, "I'm a better racist than these guys. Use alliteration." Like 2 W's. Yeah, so this was a kid's book, and it's a white lady, like a grandma looking type, serving pancakes to a little black boy. Yarn Witch says,
at least
yeah. It's kind of speechless, right?
Well, I was going to say at least the white lady serving the black boy. Like, I feel like, that's like a little like bit of that's like less racist than it could be.
Yeah. Somebody says, what's wrong with Pete? Oh, nothing's wrong with Pete. Mystery Chris was just saying it would have been funnier to use alliteration, like 2 W's, like a better name.
Because he's a better racist, apparently.
Yeah, he's a better racist. Okay, so this book is from 1937.
Wow.
And there's several children's stories in it, but the first story in it is the title of the book, Watermelon Pete. And somebody says Keri's about to get canceled. I'm just going to show you how freaking racist this is. Watermelon Pete. Once there was a little darky boy, and his name was Watermelon Pete. That's how it starts. This was for children. I know. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's too uncomfortable, I know. But just to show you what real racism is, they called him Watermelon Pete because his mouth was just the shape of a big slice of ripe watermelon. And then they have a picture of him, and it's kind of a caricature drawing. And there's this little black fairy here, which they call a blackie. a naughty little blackie. But anyway, the fairy convinces him to go outside in the middle of the night and steal a bunch of the white farmer's watermelons and eat all of them. And the farmer catches him, and then he goes home, and then the old lady ends up cooking him a whole plate of pancakes. And it doesn't say like who the farmer is to him or the old lady. So I kind of wonder, like, was he a slave, or they're just like he's like living with this
Yeah,
old
yeah,
white lady or what?
yeah.
But yeah, and the way that it's written is like for a child, and the rest of the stories in here are all about animals. So, and
Oh,
it's written kind of the same way, like, and then the naughty elephant did this, blah blah blah. But the fact that they kind of make the little black boy sort of like an animal in a way, because it's like the way they refer to him is, well, they call him a darky boy.
yeah.
It's crazy, but this was
Yeah.
in 1937,
Yep.
not that,
Yep.
in some ways a long time ago, but in other ways not that long ago, to show how much things have changed, that when you see a book like this, you're sort of like, holy crap. Like we
Yeah.
we were just shocked. Like we were in the car on the way home reading it, like, oh my God. And
Yeah.
you have to almost, in some ways, I think laughter is an appropriate reaction because you're so far removed from it. You're like, this is
Well, it's
crazy.
like it's uncomfortable. I mean, it's like because you're right. I mean, I think it's right to cause a certain amount of discomfort because
Yeah.
that's a real example of like stuff in our history. Actually, so my folks just moved down south recently, and I was down there over Christmas, and I was there for a week. So we were like looking at things to do, and we ended up going to a plantation that's down there, which is more of a. I mean, they're actually still growing crops, but like a lot of it's more of a museum at this point. And what I found fascinating and not unsurprising, because I've sort of been like awakened over the last couple of years, but what I found not particularly surprising, but just amazing, is that if you live like where I live in New York, you would get the impression that the South is just, any state that voted for Trump, or any state in the Bible Belt, or any of that stuff. You would get the impression that they are a bunch of racists who have never met a black person, who are just hateful, like religious right, like KKK type people. They would paint that with a broad brush. And we went to this plantation, and trust me, they are very aware of their history. They are very aware. They kept they kept the old slave quarters up, and each little house is a little museum to kind of go through like what took place. And it's very respectful and very aware and acknowledging of this is a painful part of our past. And they have like education like type things where they have people like talking about how it was, and how what a typical day would have been like for the enslaved people, and blah blah blah. They're very aware of it. They're very respectful of it. They all talk about like this was a dark time in our history. And they don't shy away from it. They're obviously not racist. They're keeping people aware of it. We can never let anything get like this again. I mean, it wasn't the whole, then there were other tours of like what they're doing nowadays on the plantation, but there was a specific section of it that was, very aware. And so like I said, it was not surprising to me at this point, because I like I said, I've kind of woke up from the woke over the last couple of years. But it's like, I wish I could tell more people that like they're not only like not racist where I went, they're like hyper aware that they have a dark history there.
And that it has to be remembered so you don't repeat it.
That's right.
Like, in some ways, there's this whole censorship part of social justice that I think, whether people who push it or not are aware of it, and I think a lot of them are not aware of it. But but I think that the necessary outcome of that sometimes to censor things, to censor the past, is to repeat it, because then it's like you can't even talk about it or acknowledge it. And how many generations until people aren't even aware of it, or when you pick
Right.
up, you see something like this, you're so shocked because it's so just outside the norm, and it's like, wow, like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting to think about, like, how to. I like the way that you're saying they've incorporated that into the tour, and that makes sense to me too, that they would do that at, if you're going on a tour of a plantation. Um,
Sure.
anyway, thanks for letting me do. You're never going to see old lady racist story hour at the old racist lady store. Hey, there's old racist ladies out there. Let's bring in one. She's 98. She's bringing in her favorite book, Watermelon Pete. It's good
Oh
for
my
you to know
God.
there's old racist ladies out there.
No.
Diversity.
Diversity. Oh,
So stupid. That would be a good
oh my
comedy
God.
sketch, though. Like,
Oh my
we're
God.
just
Yeah,
teaching
right.
kids about different kinds of people. One of those kinds of people are old racist ladies.
Oh my God. Yeah, right, right. Oh my God.
So stupid. There was a super chat that went by. Let's see. Oh, Pirate Tomsky says, Keri says the book's from the 1930s, but I bet she wrote it. Hey now, what's that about? My own mod is dunking on me. My old
Oh my
mod.
God.
When I bought it, though, when you buy something like that, you win it, and the checkout person's like, see what you're buying. And I was just kind of joking, like, this particular coffee shop owner, and there's like a vintage store in the back, and she knows we're renovating, or this old house, and I just made a joke. I was like, because we're doing different themes, like we have a music parlor and whatever. It's like, oh, this is for the racist room. We're gonna have one room that's just like racist stuff. Like, so
Did that like
stupid.
diffuse the tension when you said that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just make a joke.
Sometimes you just gotta be like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm buying this for my racist collection. Like, what do you?
Right, like a museum. I've got a sexist room too, so.
My whole house is homophobic, so I feel you.
Yes. Do you ever collect any, like, I do have some friends who are Black who collect this kind of racist artifacts and stuff. Do you collect any old homophobic stuff, or?
No, I'm not. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I'm interested in it to like know the history, but like I don't know. I feel like, and this is where I diverge from the wokies. Like, I feel like my life's pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
except for like being not allowed to go to restaurants for 7 months because I didn't take a medical product. My life is generally pretty good.
Yeah.
That's the worst discrimination that's ever happened to me. Was being discriminated against for my medical status. I've never been discriminated against for being gay, and I credit that to a lot of hard work by gay people who are older than me and straight allies. I hate that word, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I give a lot of credit to that. But I'm kind of like, I obviously I know the history, but I feel like I don't want that. I don't want that history around me. Like I do pretty well, and I'm happy that this is where we are, and this is why I say I differ from the wokies, because I'm like, it's pretty damn good for gay people right now.
Yes.
Like, I don't have any problems.
You would not know that to listen to them, because just like with Black people and women and with gay people, they're like, it's so homophobic out there, which I think again belittles the actual like history of discrimination that people experience for their race or sex or sexuality or what have you, to pretend like today. I think kids who are growing up today, some of them, they have a skewed perception. Like, they have no idea. Like, they think we're in the 50s or something.
Yeah, it's well, and they're being taught that it's like so bad for gay people, which is like very kind of or trans people or whatever the oppressed group of the day is, and it's like it's very like, I don't know, it's very cognitively dissonant. I think that's the way you would say that, but because then the cool thing to do is to like be gay or trans, and then everybody loves you, but you're so oppressed, and everybody also hates you except the people in your cult who love you so much. And it's like, it's just, meanwhile, like I said, there's 100% truth to it. Look, I came out of the closet when I was 13 years old in 8th grade. And it was 2003, and it was not as it was pretty okay to be gay by then, which is why I just kind of came out, because I think I said this the last time I was on your show, but like, I don't really keep my mouth shut about anything. So I was like, kind of figured out I was gay. So I was like, oh yeah, like I'm gay. Like, I like men. This is how it is, but yeah, I just, it's never been a problem for me.
It wasn't
It's never been a problem. What's that?
It wasn't really a big deal by that time.
No. And guess what? When I go down south, it's not a big deal down there either. Like, I've never been discriminated against for being gay in those like racist Trumpy states. Like, never, not once. So like, I don't know. I just, for me, I'm like, look, if I were to experience a real instance of discrimination, I would talk about it, and people would probably believe me, because I'm like, because I don't say
cry
that
wolf. Yeah.
Right. I don't cry wolf. So if I'm going to say, look, somebody like really was like, said something very homophobic to me, I felt very discriminated against, people would probably be like, oh wow, that's terrible, right? And they wouldn't roll their eyes at me, because everything else that everybody says is discriminatory. I'm like, it's not discrimination. Like, calm down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same.
Anyway.
Same. They would take it more seriously, because it's not always like, it's not something they're used to hearing from you. Let's see. I know you have a hard out in like 25 minutes, right?
Yeah, ish, unfortunately.
That's okay. I've got one more short story I wanted to show you real quick, and then if we have time for 24 Hours 8, we'll do it. If not, I can read through some of that after you leave. Let me just show you this, because this bothered me, and I wanted to talk about it last week and I didn't get to. Well, what I'm about to show you didn't bother me. I thought this was kind of spectacular, because I'm so not used to seeing it. But some of the response to it bothered me. Here we go. Are you a sports fan, Matt?
Baseball only.
Baseball, okay. This is a football story. There was an ESPN reporter who shared this prayer live on air. So this is Dan Orlovsky, a ESPN reporter, praying live on air for Damar Hamlin, who had an injury, like a very serious injury. He was in critical condition, it says, after cardiac arrest. And this was last week. And I don't know did you see this?
No, I didn't.
Just tell me what your reaction is at the end.
Just heard Scherf and Jonathan Allen say, like, all we can do is pray for him. I've heard the Buffalo Bills organization say that we believe in prayer. And maybe this is not the right thing to do, but it's just on my heart that I want to pray for.
It is.
Damar Hamlin right now. I'm going to do it out loud. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to bow my head, and I'm just going to pray for him. God, we come to you in these moments that we don't understand, that are hard, because we believe that you're God, and coming to you and praying to you has impact. We're sad, we're angry, and we want answers, but some things are unanswerable. We just want to pray, truly come to you and pray for strength for Damar, for healing for Damar, for comfort for Damar, to be with his family, to give them peace. If we didn't believe that prayer didn't work, we wouldn't ask this of you, God. I believe in prayer. We believe in prayer. We lift up Damar Hamlin's name in your name. Amen.
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 So he prayed that. I'm just going to put this on the screen because this is important to know also. Two Sisters and Some Yarn says for context, he prayed this in the immediate aftermath of Hamlin going into cardiac arrest, and they had to stop the whole game. And since then, Hamlin is recovering well. And I think Nina Infinity told me the other night that when he came to in the hospital, he asked who won. He wanted to know, did my team win? Well, nobody won. They had to stop the whole game, which is uncommon. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what's your response to seeing someone pray like that?
I think it was beautiful and heartfelt. That's what I think, and I think that he was, you can. I mean, some people believe in prayer, some people don't. That's fine. But
Right.
but I think he was doing what he felt like he needed to do to cope with especially if it was in the immediate aftermath with the news, and something that he felt that he could do to maybe send the best possible energy or vibe or God or for him it's God. I have absolutely no problem with what he did, and I'm sure you're going to say the response to it is that people were like, "Oh, don't be Christian on television," whatever. I'm sure that was the response to it. I think that was heartfelt. I don't think that he was trying to indoctrinate anyone into anything. I think he was having a moment, and he expressed what he needed to express. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I thought it was immediately obvious to me that his prayer was sincere.
Yes.
You know, I think most people, maybe not, that's not true. I shouldn't say most people, but I think there are clues that you can pick up on, behavioral clues and otherwise, when a person is insincere, when it's like a snake oil salesman doing a phony, showy kind of prayer, just to be seen doing a prayer. And that wasn't what I read from this at all. This was like a gut reaction, impulsive, in the heat of the moment right after this happened.
Well, you could see the shock on his face.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see he was just shocked, and he was like, I have to do something. And that's what he thought of to do.
Yes.
It was very kind of raw and guttural and so for me, Robert Lowry says he was visibly shook. I agree. I think that, and I think it was beautiful what he said. I'm not a religious person. I may not subscribe to his religion, but I don't have a problem with him expressing his grief and his desire for Hamlin to pull through it. I don't have a problem with him expressing.
I love to hear that from someone who's not a believer, because it's not like, hello, Matt, I want you to believe. Now I'm going to do this prayer and force you to listen to it on ESPN. There's not some ulterior motive coming from this man's mouth towards you, the non-believer in the audience who's hearing it. It's like, we all hear things all day that don't represent our beliefs or things that we think to be true. And it's like, if that doesn't, for someone who doesn't believe, it's no like offense to you that this guy does and is doing what he thinks is actually valuable and meaningful. And I love to hear you say that, because
go ahead, finish what you were going to say. I'm sorry.
Well, because one of the responses that really bothered me, and actually let me put this up first. Two Sisters in Some Yarn says, I don't think people get the severity of the fact that this man died on the field and they revived him. His heart stopped. It was history making. I have my theories why his heart stopped, she says, but it was history making. Yeah. But here's one of the responses that bothered me, and it's just I just think it's so smarmy and wrong and dishonest, because this person is so cynical, and they're trying to make this ESPN host out to be cynical, and he's not. That cynicism is in you, in my opinion. This guy's named Hemant Mehta, and he says, using Damar Hamlin's tragic injury to promote Christianity while acting as an on-air football analyst for ESPN is both useless. That's your opinion, Hemant.
That is your opinion. Yeah.
And unprofessional. But Dan Orlovsky did it anyway. And what I would say to someone like this is, what you don't get is that some of us do not think prayer is useless. That's why we turn to prayer, because we believe in it. Because it's not just words. It might be just words for you, Hemant, when you and I understand some people who say thoughts and prayers, it's just words for them. But for other people, it's like, no, I believe this is the most important and useful thing I can do. And you know what? There's a Bible verse about how when 2 or 3 come together in my name, I am there. I am present, the Lord says. So to pray like that impulsively in the moment of this guy's cardiac arrest with others is very powerful. According to Dan, he believes it's very powerful. So why wouldn't he do it? It has nothing to do with you. And why does it offend you, Hemant? Why does it bother you so much? You know,
I
it's
also
something kind to do for another person.
absolutely, absolutely. I also like for me, just where I'm at spiritually, I don't subscribe to any particular organized religion necessarily. I'm more of like a spiritual energy kind of guy. I'm actually like, as I grow my own YouTube channel, you're gonna find out that I'm pretty woo woo. I'm pretty like
Okay.
spiritual energy, kind of like the universe and all of that. That's my whole thing. But I actually where I kind of overlap with Christians and with religious people is I actually completely agree with you on the power of prayer. I just see it in a slightly different way. I see it as like you are, everybody has the ability to shift energy and to put good energy out. And I don't like that the guy said it was useless. I don't think it's useless at all. I don't think it's useless at all to send the best in my world. It would be to send the best energy possible, to send healing energy to this person. I believe in that 100%.
Mhm.
And if that is interpreted as energy by me or as prayer by somebody else, I think it has the same effect no matter what you call it.
Yeah.
And I also, and even if it doesn't work, let's say, just for the sake of argument, let's say it doesn't work. It is like you said, it's a kind thing to do, to wish well on this person, whether or not it works. He's wishing that
Yes.
this guy pulls through it. He's very kindly giving 30 seconds, 45 seconds of his time to sink into himself and do anything he possibly can to send help to this guy in the way that he knows how. Why would you be mad at that?
Yes.
Why would you be mad at that?
It's like because he doesn't believe, but he fundamentally doesn't understand that Dan does. He thinks
Right.
Dan is so cynical. He doesn't really believe in the power of prayer. He's just trying to push Christianity. Well, why is he trying to push Christianity if he doesn't believe in it? First of all, that doesn't even make any sense. Unless you think he's a full-on con artist using the beliefs of others to further himself. And there's nothing about this guy, Dan, that would lead me to believe that, just the basics of what I know about him. But so why would you think that someone who's like you and thinks prayer is useless would pray cynically to I'm gonna push Christianity? Just to coming from that place that this critic is coming from him, and I'm like, you are so cynical that you think everyone else is out to pull something over on someone.
If
And
he
it
was a
just,
con
yeah,
artist promoting Christianity, he would probably say something like, he would probably say, and everybody make sure you go to church on Sunday, and everybody
give me your money. That's what he would say.
right,
Give me your money
or,
because I'm a Christian.
right. Or like, or he'd try to guilt the audience and be like, if you're not praying with me, then you're going to go to hell or something,
Right.
like there would be like an element of that if he was trying to like promote, like push his beliefs on other people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he would guilt the audience, or he would, try and tell them, and my prayer works better than yours because I go to church every Sunday. There would be some element of like,
Yes, I am a
something
better
gross like
Christian
that.
than
You know what?
you,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah. And try and make people feel bad. And that's the thing is, like, he's not trying to make he's not trying to make you feel bad, Hemant, because you don't believe in God. Like, if you are strong in your unbelief, then somebody else's belief shouldn't bother you. Like, it's
That's
just a
right.
mere expression of belief. So why are you so threatened by him praying just because you don't believe in it? Like, who cares? He's not saying anything about you. And if you think that he is, like, that's your own project. Maybe you're judging yourself. Maybe you hate yourself. Maybe maybe something. It just really bothered me, that guy's cynicism. I was like, shut up. Also, because I've started thinking more about like when I talk about God and stuff, and I'm very curious to learn more about your beliefs on your channel, but because in the past few years, there was a while when I first started doing a podcast where I wasn't really talking about my personal beliefs, because I kind of viewed it as separate. Like, I'm just here to criticize my old ideology and offer the criticisms that I've formed over the past year. At that time, it had been about a year. Like, and to explain to people, especially people in that ideology, why I left and why I think it's bad. And I'm not going to muddy the waters with my new beliefs, my new belief system, or my personal, what happened to me or anything. And then I let that go, and I slowly started. Benjamin Boyce was the first person who asked me about my about God and stuff, and so, or he or Zuby one, and so I just started talking about it a little bit over time, and now I'm in this place where I kind of feel like, I never want to be. I don't like used car salesmen uh, in any belief system, and they
Yeah.
turn me off. So why would I don't want to be that? But at the same time, I don't want to censor myself and not talk about what I believe, who I believe God can help people, and when people are in a dark place. And I kind of was thinking about it like this, Matt, like, if someone is starving, or no, let's say if someone is dying of thirst in a desert, and you have what you believe is a bucket of water, like, why wouldn't you give it to them? Whether that's prayer in the heat of the moment like this, like impulsively, or why wouldn't you offer them that water? What, out of fear of what Hemet Meta will think of you if you do? like, I'm sorry, Hemet. I'm going to offer the water anyway, even if you say it's me. She's just trying to promote water. Yes, I am, because I think it's water. Like, I think it's going to save you. Anyway.
No, I think that I mean I have a lot of respect for most well, I would say those who are truly religious, who are doing it for their own, for their own well-being and that kind of thing. I mean, I would say, like, I also don't like used car salesmen. Like, I don't like people coming up to me and telling me that I have to believe a certain thing. Look, this is why I don't like woke. Like, I don't like people telling me what to believe, right? But I have a lot of respect for people who, because I think at least on this, it's similar the way I am and the way that people who practice in organized religion are, that they do believe that there's something bigger than yourself, right? And so, like, a lot of organized religions will somewhat personify it, and that's not really my journey, but I think we're all talking about the same thing. And I think that, like, that's that people who, like, understand that there is, like, a spiritual realm beyond, like, the physical we have here on earth, there's obviously something to that. Enough people tap into it, so there's obviously something to that,
Yes. Like, yeah, that's why I don't know. I think I think that the journey you are on, when you say, and you describe it as spirituality, that's a journey of truth. And that's also the way, I'm not saying you're going to end up in the same place I am. I have no idea. But that's also the way my Christian life began. Because at first it was just being open to the idea that there was something bigger than us, and something I couldn't explain or don't even know or don't have the capacity to understand. That we're more than just a body with a brain, like a computer brain. And I talked about the universe quite a bit too. It took me a while to get over my uncomfortableness at calling the universe God, but I eventually did. But when people say the universe, I know what they mean. And I do think we're talking about the same thing. So,
Right. And when people say God, I know what they mean. It doesn't offend me. It really doesn't. I can, like I said, I agree with you. I think we're talking about the same thing. So it doesn't bother me. I'm like, okay, we're tapped into it. Whatever it is, we're tapped into it.
Yeah.
And if the Christians are more right than me at the end of the day, it's fine. You know what I mean?
And who has that? Who cares about that conversation anyway? Of, like, I'm more right.
Yeah.
Like, that's a sign of a phony, in my opinion.
Right. And and even if that's the objective truth, if the way that certain people are spiritual is closer to the actual truth than mine is, then okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, that doesn't bother me. That really just doesn't bother me. Like, I think I try to live my life. I try to live my life as a good person who puts good energy out into the world. I don't always succeed at it, but I try, and that's it. If that's how I try to live, and I try to get that energy back to me. And like I said, I'm not always good or perfect at it by any means, but that's what I try to do. So and when I see other people who are trying to do that, I don't care about their belief system. I care about their integrity and their
how they're behaving. That's
correct.
why sometimes I say it's not just a belief system, it's a behavior system. Christianity,
Right.
I think, is a behavior system. You see,
Right.
even there's verses about that. You see, you shall know them by their fruits. It's like a person actually probably shouldn't have to tell you what they believe. It should be obvious in the way they behave in the world. But
Right.
I want to say goodbye to Pirate Tomsky. He says he's heading out. He says, smash the like before the end. Goodbye, folks. I've been teasing Twitter Files 8, and we haven't even gotten to it yet, but I know you have to leave soon, so I can cover it after you leave. Can I have you?
Sorry, I wish I could
That's
stay.
okay. I'm going to be on your show soon. When I figure it out, we'll
Yes.
deprogram people know when. And I hope you come back and we can talk about other stuff we didn't get to today.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel like there's always so much going on. Sometimes I'm just like, oh man, I wish there was like a slow news week, but then I'd have nothing to talk about on YouTube. So whatever.
Right. So tell people again, Matt, where they can find you online.
Yeah. I am at Mantar NYC, right? That's my first initial, my last name, and the place where I currently live, unfortunately. MANTARNYC. And that's on Twitter and Instagram. And then YouTube, just search my name, or it's youtube.com/@MattAntar. You can find my channel. I have 3 episodes up right now. I have a therapist, a non-woke therapist, Pam. She's awesome. Seth, who's a base trans guy, and Gavin Wax, who's the president of the New York Young Republican Club. Those are my first 3 episodes. Clifton Duncan's going to be my fourth episode. And so we'll find out if I'm good at making podcasts. I still don't know, but we'll see.
Well, you've got a great guest coming up, and you seem to be having fun with it. So much luck to you, sir. And we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, Keri. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you,
Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Totally.
Okay, guys.
Bye, guys.
I am going to cover Twitter Files 8 because I'd said last time I was, and I didn't. So, hold on. Let's see. thank you, sir. He says, quench your thirst with like. So if you're here and you haven't hit like yet, please do. It helps the algorithm. It helps the deprogram algorithm. Dangerous Threat says, great chat, Keri, Matt. Take care, everyone. Thank you guys for hanging out. Okay, we're going to power through Twitter Files Part 8. If you're like me, it helps to read along with other people. And we've been covering all the parts here on Deprogram for anybody who doesn't want to read it themselves and just wants to listen to it. I think it's one of the most important stories of our lifetime, and it's being completely ignored by the mainstream media. And I think the journalists who are putting out the Twitter Files are doing a great job of prolonging it by putting it out in parts. So I think the longer they can try and keep this in the news cycle, even though the mainstream news is still ignoring it, the better. Let's get this up on the screen. So this is part 8, and this was put out by journalist Lee Fang. Twitter Files Part 8, How Twitter Quietly Aided the Pentagon's Covert Online PSYOP Campaign. Okay. If you haven't been reading this, we've covered the other parts 1 through 7 already. One of the most interesting parts or things about the previous parts, in my opinion, is that for so long we heard people on the left, like these leftist authoritarians, who agreed with the censorship that social media companies were doing. They would say things like they would take conservatives' sincerely held principles, and they would try and use those against conservatives or against classical liberals. And they would say things like, private companies can do what they want. It's not the government censoring. It's a private company, so it's okay. First of all, that's not even true. Just because it's a legal kind of censorship doesn't make it ethical or moral. I mean, I disagree with all censorship. I don't care if it's the legal kind or the illegal kind. It's censorship. It's disgusting. So either way, it's wrong. But then come to find out in the Twitter files, that wasn't even true because the government had a huge part in the censorship that was happening at Twitter. And if it's happening at Twitter, it's also happening at Facebook and Instagram and all these other places. They were having weekly meetings. Twitter was having weekly meetings with the FBI and several other 3-letter government agencies who were handpicking tweets and accounts to give Twitter for censorship, for the purposes of censorship. So the government was censoring through working with these social media companies that were working hand in hand. It's disgusting. And anybody in the future who tries to say it's a private company, it can do what it wants. And it's like, well, yeah, I agree. Private companies can do what they want, even if it does something despicable and unethical, like censoring. They legally can. But look, this wasn't the private company doing it on its own. It was doing it hand in hand with our government. So that's my little rant about what we've learned so far. Okay, so Twitter Files Part 8, how Twitter quietly aided the Pentagon's covert online PSYOP campaign. Despite promises to shut down covert state-run propaganda networks, Twitter documents show that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military's influence operations. Twitter has claimed for years that they make concerted efforts to detect and thwart government-backed platform manipulation. Here's Twitter testifying to Congress about its pledge to rapidly identify and shut down all state-backed covert information operations and deceptive propaganda. And then Li Fang here has included some of the testimony that Twitter gave, where they say combating attempts to interfere in conversations on Twitter remains a top priority for the company, and we continue to invest heavily in our detection, disruption, and transparency efforts related to state-backed information operations. Our goal is to remove bad faith actors and to advance public understanding of these critical topics. Twitter defines state-backed information operations as coordinated platform manipulation efforts that can be attributed with a high degree of confidence to state-affiliated actors. Okay, that means things like the FBI, guys. State-backed information operations are typically associated with misleading, deceptive, and spammy behavior. These behaviors differentiate coordinated manipulative behavior from legitimate speech on behalf of individuals and political parties. Whenever we identify inauthentic activity on Twitter that meets our definition of an information operation and which we are able to confidently attribute to actors associated with a government, we share comprehensive data about this activity. What outright hypocrites. The fact that they gave this testimony to Congress while they knew behind the scenes they are participating in a state-run information operation. They are actors in it. They are working hand in hand with the FBI. Okay, it's just so rich. Here's the third tweet in this series. This again is the Twitter Files Part 8, and Li Fang is the journalist who reported on this. He says, but behind the scenes, Twitter gave approval and special protection to the U.S. military's online psychological influence ops. Despite knowledge that the Pentagon propaganda accounts used covert identities, Twitter did not suspend many for around 2 years or more. Some remain active. In 2017, a U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, officials sent Twitter a list of 52 Arab language accounts, quote, we use to amplify certain messages, end quote. The official asked for priority service for 6 of these accounts, verification for 1, and, quote, whitelist abilities for the others. This is them like outright asking Twitter, hey, help us with our information operation. Yeah, in the chat, Rib says, in cahoots. Totally in cahoots. Working hand in hand. This is so gross. Okay, so you can see this email here, and this is from U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, to Twitter in 2017. And this is exactly what Li Fang says it is. He's like, here are some of our Arab language accounts that we use, that we, the government, use to amplify certain messages. This person says, I've attached a list. The first 6 on the list are our priority accounts. Ideally, we could have them verified, blue check mark, and whitelisted if there is such a thing. One of them is currently not indexing. This other one has a request for verification, but we haven't heard anything. The rest are accounts we use to amplify certain messages. Ideally, they could be whitelisted as well. Again, if this is too big of an ask, Twitter, the first 6 are the priority. If you need any sort of paperwork or verification from our office or SOCOM, please just let us know. Also, our SOCOM guys have mentioned they'd love to be able to come and meet up for a face-to-face to talk if you think Twitter folks would be up for it. This is the government and Twitter in bed together. It's the same day that CENTCOM sent the list, Twitter officials used a tool to grant a special whitelist tag that essentially provides verification status to the accounts without the blue check, meaning they are exempt from spam and abuse flags and more visible and more likely to trend on hashtags. Propaganda, guys. The CENTCOM accounts on the list tweeted frequently about U.S. military priorities in the Middle East, including promoting anti-Iran messages, promotion of the Saudi Arabia U.S.-backed war in Yemen. So these are like pro-war accounts, pretending to be Arabic accounts, in actuality run by our government and whitelisted by Twitter. They also promoted quote accurate U.S. drone strikes that they claimed to only hit terrorists. CENTCOM then shifted strategies and deleted disclosures of ties to the Twitter accounts. The bios of the accounts changed to seemingly organic profiles. One bio read Euphrates Pulse, another used an apparent deepfake profile pic and claimed to be a source of Iraqi opinion. These are catfish. I mean, it's the equivalent of catfish accounts. These sock puppet catfish accounts that our government deep state are wearing. They're wearing these sock puppets, and Twitter, knowing that it's them, is verifying them, whitelisting them, so they're more likely to trend and show up in profiles. And so they are immune to being flagged for anything suspicious or for abuse. One Twitter official who spoke to me said he feels deceived by the covert shift. Still, many emails from throughout 2020 show that high-level Twitter executives were well aware of the Department of Defense's vast network of fake accounts and covert propaganda and did not suspend the accounts. I don't know how anyone on the left, I don't care if you're in this tribalism place and you're like, but I'm on the left and so I can't read the Twitter files, or I can't care about this because my tribe is telling me not to. You're a human adult. Like, it shouldn't matter if you're on the left or the right. This is awful. Like, this is awful stuff. I don't know how you read this and don't become just outraged. Like, anyway. Okay, we're going to get through this. This one isn't too long. For example, Twitter lawyer Jim Baker mused in a July 2020 email about an upcoming Department of Defense meeting that the Pentagon used poor tradecraft in setting up its network, and were seeking strategies for not exposing the accounts that are linked to each other or to DoD and the USG. Stacia Cardell, another Twitter attorney, replied that the Pentagon wanted an SCIF and may want to retroactively classify its social media activities to, quote, obfuscate their activity in this space, and that this may represent an overclassification to avoid embarrassment, end quote. So they want to obfuscate their activity on Twitter, the Pentagon, the government. In several other 2020 emails, high-level Twitter executives and lawyers discussed the covert network and even recirculated the 2017 list from CENTCOM and shared another list of 157 undisclosed Pentagon accounts, again, mostly focused on Middle East military issues. In a May of 2020 email, Twitter's Lisa Roman emailed the Department of Defense with 2 lists. One list was accounts, quote, previously provided to us, end quote, and another list Twitter detected. The accounts tweeted in Russian and Arabic on U.S. military issues in Syria and ISIS, and many also did not disclose their Pentagon ties. These are sock puppets. The hundreds of accounts operated by our government used to manipulate public opinion. Many of these secretive U.S. military propaganda accounts, despite detection by Twitter as late as 2020, but potentially earlier, continued tweeting through this year. Some not suspended until May of 2022 or later, according to records I received. In August of 2022, a Stanford Internet Observatory report exposed a U.S. military covert propaganda network on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and other apps using fake news portals and deepfake images and memes against U.S. foreign adversaries. The U.S. propaganda network relentlessly pushed narratives against Russia, China, and other foreign countries. They accused Iran of, quote, threatening Iraq's water security and flooding the country with crystal meth, end quote, and of harvesting the organs of Afghan refugees. The Stanford report did not identify all of the accounts in the network, but one they did name was the exact same Twitter account that Sitcom asked for whitelist privileges in its 2017 email. I verified via Twitter's internal tools the account used an AI created deepfake image. So this profile pic that the Pentagon was using, that Sitcom, the U.S. government was using, they created this deepfake AI generated person who wasn't even real, so they could push all this propaganda on Twitter with Twitter's knowledge and with Twitter whitelisting the account for them. If you're just joining us, we're reading through the Twitter files part 8. And this part was reported by journalist Li Fang, and you can follow along on Twitter if you want. I'll just check the chat real quick and see if I've missed anything from you guys. Thanks for sticking around while we read this part. I don't like reading things that make me angry by myself. Am I the only one? I like reading it with other people. I'm like, I know this is going to make me upset. Let's read it with friends. Okay. We're continuing with Twitter Files Part 8. Li Fang is the one reporting on this. In subsequent reporting, Twitter was cast as an unbiased hero for removing, quote, a network of fake user accounts promoting pro-Western policy positions, end quote. Media covering the story described Twitter as evenly applying its policies and proactive in suspending the Department of Defense network, which is couldn't be further from the truth. The media is the enemy of the people at this point, guys. And look at how they're ignoring the Twitter files. Like it's not even happening. The reality is much more murky. Twitter actively assisted Sitcom's network going back to 2017, and as late as 2020, they knew that these accounts were covert and designed to deceive, to manipulate the discourse, a violation of Twitter's policies and promises, and their testimony before Congress. It directly opposes their testimony before Congress. They waited years to suspend these accounts. Twitter's communications team was closely in touch with reporters, working to minimize Twitter's role. When the Washington Post reported on the scandal, Twitter officials congratulated each other because the story didn't mention any Twitter employees and focused largely just on the Pentagon. So you can see here these email exchanges. I'm going to read one. Here's one from Katie Rossborough at Twitter, privileged and confidential. She says, hi there, hope you're well. We wanted to give you a heads up that the Washington Post will be publishing a piece, most likely this weekend, that sheds more light on the U.S. government aspects of the recent Graphica Stanford report about tech companies removing U.S.-based influence campaigns. It's a story that's mostly focused on the Department of Defense and Facebook. However, there will be a couple of lines that reference us alongside Facebook in that we reached out to them for a meeting. We don't think they'll tie it to anything Mudge related or name any Twitter employees. We declined to comment. I suspect this piece will get more attention in Washington with the Department of Defense angle. We'll keep you posted. And so one of the people she's writing to, Rebecca Hahn at Twitter, says, "Ack, thank you." Another person, Jim Baker, attorney, says, "Got it, thanks." And Lauren Culbertson at Twitter says, "Thank you for the flag, Katie." And then look at this. She goes, "Hey folks, here's the piece," which I think turned out as expected. And then Rebecca Hahn replies all and says, "Thanks for doing all that you could to manage this one," like mitigate it is what she means. "It didn't seem to get too much traction beyond Verge, CNN, and Washington Post editors promoting." So they're like celebrating that the media, it didn't go viral. That it's nobody's really paying attention to the fact that the Twitter employees were involved in this information propaganda campaign that the government's engaged in. Okay. The conduct with the U.S. military's covert network stands in stark contrast with how Twitter has boasted about rapidly identifying and taking down covert accounts tied to state-backed influence operations, including Thailand, Russia, Venezuela, and others since 2016. Here is my reported piece with more detail. I was given access to Twitter for a few days. I signed and agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. The searches were carried out by a Twitter attorney, so what I saw could be limited. And then Li Fang, who did the Twitter Files Part 8, he's linked to his piece here in The Intercept that you guys can go read. The headline, if you're looking for it at The Intercept, is called "Twitter Aided the Pentagon in its Covert Online Propaganda Campaign." So this is the end of Part 8. Again, I told you this wasn't a very long part, so I wanted to read through this one here. You guys can follow Li Fang, the journalist who reported this part, on Twitter at LHFang. And thank you for sticking around while we read through that. I think everybody who cares about transparency and individual rights, and who cares about who understands what's wrong with censorship and government propaganda should be sharing the Twitter Files every chance they get, whether you're sharing the links to Twitter or you're sharing videos about it, that like this one, or otherwise. I think every alternative media outlet, whether it's a podcast or YouTube channel, what have you, should be covering this, because the mainstream media is trying to pretend like it doesn't exist. And God bless these journalists who are rolling this out slowly, because it gives us an opportunity to keep talking about it. And if they had done it all at once, it would have been much easier for the media to ignore it. Although they're still trying, but it would have been much easier for them if it was just in some 24-hour news cycle. The Front Porch Conservative says, "Don't worry, Keri, we'll get mad with you." Thank you. I hate to read this stuff myself. It makes me upset. Hello, sir. It's good to see you in your fine chapeau. Let's see. What else? Somebody gave me, Real Raven says, "Ack" means acknowledged, Keri, not ack. Oh, really? ACK means acknowledged. Oh, well, that's what I write when I say like ack, like, oh. So it could, maybe it could mean both, but you're probably right. I want a front porch, says Rib Rascal. I have to say, I finally have a front porch and I love it. I recommend them. If you can find yourself, even if you have to move way away from the city, if you can find yourself a front porch, get one, because it's lovely. It's one of my favorite places to hang out. I think that's it, you guys. I want to thank Matt Antar again for hanging out today. And thank you, Pirate and Cheeky Mare and Two Sisters and Some Yarn for modding today. Zato, happy Monday. Good to see you. Don't have much else to add today, so thanks for also sticking around while we read. I think that was a first for the channel, reading something really horrible. Watermelon Pete. Oh my gosh. You guys. Joseph Massey's here. Joseph Massey is a wonderful poet. You can find him on Twitter and elsewhere. Good to see you, Joseph. If you weren't here earlier, we read just like the first sentence from this awful racist children's book from 1937. And we're just talking about how far we've actually progressed, even though social justice people want us to think we haven't. But that was kind of crazy. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out today. If it was your first time here, this is a live show we do on Mondays and Fridays where we bring on guest hosts and we just talk about what's in the news and what's on our mind. And Matt Antar was our guest host today. And I thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday night with our regular Wednesday night show with Mystery Chris. That show is called Pop Culture, and we'll see you at 8 p.m. Central Time. Thank you guys. Bye.
Oh, I'm gonna go then! And I don't need any of this! I don't need this stuff! And I don't need you! I don't need anything! Except this. This ashtray, and that's the only thing I need is this! I don't need this or this! Just
Thank you to today's sponsor, the Church on the Square of Georgetown, Texas, which happens to be my church. My church is no longer allowed to advertise on Facebook, which is unfortunate because that's how I and a lot of other church members originally found them. They've been told that they violate community standards. There's no details there of what that means, but you guys know the score. Anyway, since they're not allowed to advertise, I'm here to give them a plug. You can find them online at thechurchonthesquare.org. You can also find videos of all the sermons and some other kinds of content on their YouTube page at Church on the Square. You can also join us. If you happen to be in the Georgetown, Texas area, we meet every Sunday at Ken's Guitars, that's Kenz, Ken's Guitars, right on the Georgetown Square. We meet outside, right on the square. Sometimes, if the weather's nice, you might find us there. You might find us outside in front of Ken's. But if you're local, I hope to see you.